President Trump suggesting that the FBI should look into the Epstein case, but not necessarily because of Epstein's actions, but because he says it's a scam pushed by Democrats.
But they ought to look into the Jeffrey Epstein hoax too, because that's another hoax that's frankly put out by the pushing the Republicans and put out by the Democrats.
Just to be specific on timing, Epstein was investigated and arrested during Trump's first term. Now, Trump and Epstein, of course, were once friends. Trump's talked about that in the same circles decades ago. This photograph goes all the way back to 1997 in Mar-a-Lago, so it's a long time ago. And Trump hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing in the Epstein case. Out front now is Jack O'Donnell, the former president and chief operating officer of the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino. Jack, just as all this conversation comes up, we've talked to you many times over the years, you and I, but you worked with Trump in an important period, 1987 to 1990. And I know that's, we talk about a lot of this friendship going back that long. You heard the name Jeffrey Epstein a lot during the time you worked with Trump. Can you tell us about their friendship?
Oh, sure, Aaron. First off, it's laughable that it wasn't a good friendship, if not his best friend during those days. He frequently came down to Atlantic City, the two of them, to attend special events. I heard reference in several conversations, and in one conversation where I had to specifically talk to him about Epstein and his presence in the casino. So it was, it was, in my mind, it was his best friend, from really the time I was there for 4 years. His name was, not constant, but it came up quite a bit.
And you're saying they would, from what you would call, come down to the casino together. Trump has called Epstein a terrific guy, a lot of fun to be with. Now, that was a New York Magazine interview all the way back in 2002, predating any of these any knowledge of Epstein's nefarious actions. More recently, Trump has downplayed his relationship with Epstein. Back in 2019, he said this, and this is right after Jack Epstein was taken into custody.
I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. People in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
That doesn't really fit with what you're saying.
No, Aaron, it doesn't. And one incident that I think kind of, proves their closeness and how much they hung out together. One time, a Monday morning, I came in and the commission was waiting. The inspectors were waiting in my office. And Donald and Jeffrey had come into the casino in the wee hours of Sunday morning, 1:30 in the morning. Two buddies. They had three women with them. And the commission was waiting for me because they had determined that the women that they brought down were underage to be on the casino. And when I asked them how they knew that, by the way, one of them was the number 3 ranked tennis player in the world. Okay. And this guy happened to be a tennis fan. And he said, Jack, I know she's 19 years old. Okay. So, and to get on a helicopter with a friend and 3 other people and fly down to Atlantic City, you can connect those dots. They were pretty
at 1:30 in the morning. And just to be clear, when you say underage for the casino, underage for the casino would be 21, right? So not necessarily legally underage girls, right? Not in that case.
No, not in the sense of a minor, so to speak, that's been described with Epstein. They were underage to be in the casino, and they knew for fact that one of them was 19 years old. Nobody carded them, by the way, because either the commission staff or my staff, because they were intimidated to do so. And that's why the commission was actually going to fine me for Donald's discretion. Now, one of the things that they made me do is they made me call him. And I had to, believe it or not, read him the riot act about this action because they gave him a break. Back in those days, and I think even today, the fines are substantial. They can even suspend your license for letting minors in the casino. And I had to call them and say, look, they're giving you a break this time. But if this happens again, the fine is going to be substantial and it's going to be on your head. And oh, by the way, it's not going to look good, you and this guy Epstein coming down here with these young women.
What did he say?
Oh, well, he was shocked that they let him off the hook. First off, he was flabbergasted. He said, "I can't believe they're letting, they're not throwing the book at me. Nobody gives me a break." And that really was his reaction. And I did tell him in that conversation, I don't think you should be hanging out with this guy, just so you know, and you certainly shouldn't be doing that in Atlantic City.
All right, Jack O'Donnell, thank you very much, and for all of this and sharing your recollections here. I appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you. So now you hear what Jack had to say. I want to go to the veteran investigative journalist Barry Levine, who is the former executive editor of the National Enquirer. He was in that role for 17 years. The author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, where he led an exhaustive investigation into Epstein. So, Barry, you hear what Jack had to say. The Jeffrey Epstein case better than almost anyone. So when you take a step back and you look at all this firestorm right now that is out there, what key information is still being withheld from the public?
Well, Aaron, certainly, I first want to say that calling this thing a hoax is such an insult to Jeffrey Epstein's victims. As the Justice Department told us, there's about 1,000 victims who had been abused, and for this to be called a hoax is just horrible. Say that to the woman who swam from his island to escape. Say that to the families of 3 of his victims who have passed on, one from suicide, 2 from accidental overdoses. So, I'm absolutely appalled at as how Trump is handling this situation. But there is still so much that we can learn from these files, and I think that, as the speaker said, let's see transparency here, because not only can we learn more about men who are in his circle, who are in his web, as I wrote in my book, who were involved in this, but we can also learn the financial connections of how the money was distributed to him. I mean, it took millions of dollars for him to maintain this operation over 2 decades. And we need to see exactly how the FBI treated this, who they investigated, were there financial crimes here of individuals that need to be looked at.
So just a few moments ago, Barry, before you and I were speaking, just before the show came to air, the federal prosecutor for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Maureen Comey, all right, that's her name. Does the name sound familiar? It should, because she happens to be the daughter of the former FBI Director James Comey. Okay, so she was just fired. All right, she was just fired. She is James Comey's daughter. She was the one looking at this case. Let's just take politics out of it, because I know there'll be politics all over this one, right? It'll be flies over a carcass. But you're very familiar with her work. What do you make of her firing?
It is another situation here in this week of absolutely horrible things that have come out of Trump in terms of this firing that's taken place. She was such an advocate for the victims of sexual abuse. She took part in the successful prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. She was on the team for the Jeffrey Epstein prosecution in 2019. Just an excellent part of that team in New York and the Southern District. And for this to go down, the circumstances, they're too similar as to what he said about her father, and then you have this result. So it looks to me like it is just she was knocked down because of her dad, and it's sad.
Well, it's important now, you've written the book and done so much on this. It's important that you can talk for the facts of her performance and who she was and what she was doing, and that's what matters. So, Barry, thanks so much. I appreciate your time and you taking the time to talk to me.